My dad is a completely different creature. He's a difficult person in that he's stubborn, but he's also has that very giving spirit. So I think the most important thing I learned from him was the work ethic. Hard work pays off.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development. We are here with Mike Magann, the founder of Cubion. Mike, can you describe your business for people who may not know what that is?
Sure. Cubion is a structured cabling company and managed IT. So we pull network cable, fiber optics, and then handle your IT needs.
Very cool. So what did you originally go to school for?
I actually went to school at Cat Brandywine for just your basic computer repair, and then it kind of morphed into networking. Did like the A plus and Net plus certifications, and that was the extent of my after high school education, and most of it's just self taught. The cabling industry is, pretty easy, easy industry to learn. It's just time consuming.
So when you were going to school for computers, did you have a specific career in mind?
Not really. I wanted to be my own boss, I think, from pretty much 15, 16, 17 years old. My dad was an entrepreneur. He ran his appraising company for, a long time. So I liked the idea of starting my own company, being my own boss. And we kind of formed a little thing in high school. And, that didn't last very long, but hey, it was the bump I needed to get out and do some real research and things like that.
What was that business that you formed in high school?
It was, let me see if I can remember the name. I think it was CCCNS, Chester County Computer and Networking Services, and it was like literally the dumbest logo you can possibly think of. It was like a pick art from 2000, so it was really stupid, but it worked for a couple of my friends, and in the Votech school there, we kind of wanted to build our own thing. So,
and how old were you at that?
I was probably 16 or 17 years old.
Okay, working with your dad.
No, I did work for him for a little while, just doing some pictures of houses and things like that, and doing some basic paperwork. But my dad was appraising, and I was IT. My dad dabbled in the IT, so I guess I kind of got a little bit of the IT side from him as well. But I kind of surpassed him in that aspect.
So was your dad like your main mentor in business leading into it, or?
Yeah. He ran his own office supply store years ago. He just did it right out of my mom's parents' front porch over in Paoli. And he got really big really quick, to the point where he kind of had to make a decision, like, do I keep going or do I focus on the family life? So, and my mom was pregnant with me at the time, and it's like, nah, I think I'm just going to go into the working world. So he did that for a little while. Then eventually, after I was kind of old enough to, take care of myself for the most part, he went back into his own business.
So what kind of like a business type of person was he? Was he like real sales heavy or more operational? Like what was his kind of take on business philosophy?
My dad is a completely different creature. He wouldn't even, he's just, he's a difficult person in that he's stubborn, but he's also has that very giving spirit. So he was definitely like a hardcore salesman, but he also wanted to be honest with it too. So he just was. I think the most important thing I learned from him was the work ethic. Like hard work pays off. So that was the most important thing I think I learned from him.
Okay, so you had that business in high school, then you went and you studied computers. How did you go from there to starting Cubion?
So I started after I graduated high school. I worked in Office Max for a while. I was their lead sales associate, logistics supervisor for a while. And the whole time I was working there, I was kind of building my, clientele base, which eventually I found that they kind of frowned upon, and, got a little irritated that I was selling my services on company time. But that's for another podcast. But I was just building my client base. They would, people would come in the store and they would buy a whole bunch of computers, and I would give them a card and say, "Yeah, I'll set it up for you." And I kind of built my base from there. And then I started my first company, which was Mike's Computer Network Solutions. It was another dumb name, but it started out as just computer repair. And then as my knowledge grew and the industry changed, we did more networking, more web design stuff, more, on-site services and things like that. And then I changed the name to MCNS Technologies. And I ran that for probably 15 years. And then at one point it was so many ups and downs. It was like a roller coaster because I didn't really know how to run a business. I wasn't properly funded, didn't have the right staff. I tried to do too much too soon. So I made a lot of those earlier entrepreneur mistakes. And at the end of the day, I was like, I'm just working for my staff. Like, I don't have anything to show for it. And like, hey, I want to take care of all my employees, but I still need to take care of myself too. So it's just, it wasn't working out. And I was looking to get married, and I wanted to be able to support, the family and things like that. So I decided to take a job as a project manager, and I gained a lot of my cabling experience from that company. Things didn't work out in that company, so I got out and decided to go back into business for myself and made smarter decisions, and it's been growing ever since.
So I want to go back a little bit and tell me about some of those early mistakes. You said those early entrepreneur mistakes that you were making.
Doing too much too soon, I think, was one of the biggest ones. Trying to evolve into a lot of different areas of business without the proper funding and without the proper research. I had a business partner, or I guess he was more of an employee at that point, and listened to some bad advice from him. He wanted to do a bunch of different things, and he wanted, let's do web hosting, let's do data backup, and I'm like, we're not insured for this, we don't have the right resources for this, and it wasn't working out. It was making us look bad because we couldn't serve our customers properly, and we just made a lot of dumb decisions that kind of got us in the wrong direction. I hired people too soon, hired the wrong people. I had a bookkeeper that wasn't keeping books, so she was just getting a check. Tried to hire salespeople and wasted money on them. So it's I guess the other mistake would be not properly researching your staff, like just hiring people and not asking the right questions and kind of vetting them properly. I think that was one of the other decisions, mistakes too.
So did you learn any certain like principles or anything to help you avoid those same kind of mistakes in the future?
I don't know if it's necessarily principles, but I would say I learned to trust my instincts better, listen to myself rather than other people. I mean, I value everyone's advice, obviously, but at the end of the day, I'm the boss. The decision has to be mine, and I have to go with what I feel is the right decision inside. Because I didn't want to do, I did want to do web hosting, but not until we had the capital to do it properly and we had the right staff to do it properly. But I was kind of hoping it would just grow, and that, it doesn't work that way. You have to have a plan and a strategy. And I was really young when I started it too.
I was going to say, so when you decided to start again, I guess it was your Cubon would be technically your third business.
Oh well, I mean, second. The other one was it wasn't even a legit business. It was
It
just
was
a
just
name we had in high
okay.
school. Yeah.
So second attempt. Before we dive into some of the logistics of setting that up, how do you like to define IT as an industry? It's such a broad term, and I feel like everyone kind of has their own definition of it. How do you describe that? Like, what is IT services?
Well, that's a question I'm still asking myself because there's a lot of it is a very broad term, and you have, for example, we deal with IT people. I say that with quotes in these higher companies that have no knowledge of IT whatsoever, but yet they're the chief IT officer. So they're just in a role to push the checks or you know make the decisions and things like that. So then you also have IT where it's like web design or more software related. It's just there's a whole group of things that can fit into that term. I would say IT is basically information technology. It's anything that has to do with information and technology and a combination of both.
So when you started QBeyond, how did you define what services you were going to include and not include in your business?
Well, Cubion was supposed to be a managed IT company first. So we were supposed to do all IT and cabling as a second source of income for the business. The roles kind of reversed because I was working as a project manager for a cabling company out in Philadelphia, and I gained a lot of my knowledge through cabling. And I said, "Wow, this is pretty lucrative. The overhead's low, and the return on your investment is pretty high." Because cable was cheap back then, and it still is fairly inexpensive, but it was definitely cheaper back then. And you didn't have to hire $100,000 a year employees, that have Cisco certifications, things like that. You could train the average guy to pull cable and can get them for a decent price. So it's actually, pretty profitable. And so I looked at that structure and I said, hey, if we do 3, 4 big cabling jobs, we pocket 100 grand, $200,000 cash. We have a lot of now liquid assets we can use to help build other portions of the company. So that was the goal. That was my strategy for going cabling first and then IT second.
So as you decide that you want to go into cabling, you're not working at Office Max anymore. So how did you go about getting those new customers?
We did a lot of research online. One of the biggest sources of our revenue is a lead system that we use. So we work with a partner that finds us leads for people who are looking for structured cabling work. We pay a fee for that service, and we also buy the lead. We make contact with the customer, and we probably close between 40 to 60% of them, that we get, and obviously, one closed deal can pay for that lead service for the next year or two easily.
Is that like a private arrangement you have with this person, or is that like a public lead service?
It is a public lead service, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And we also reached out to different IT companies because there are IT companies that don't do cabling at all. We're unique in the fact that we do both. So we just cold call IT companies, maybe go driving around, look for a couple computer shops that you see on the road, stop in, introduce ourselves, and say, hey, we're local to the area. If you guys don't do any cable services, we could do that for you. And so we actually have a couple that we partner with like that. And then we do a lot of work with what we call rollout companies. They're just TTU companies, they're testing and turn-up companies. So they have huge like national accounts. They have like Amazon, United Rentals, Tractor Supply. These huge national accounts, and these companies find smaller companies like myself and others all over the country, and they just hand us work. They'll like, hey, you're our guy for Pennsylvania, or you're our guy for New Jersey. So we constantly try to expand our market. So we're now a national vendor, so we actually go all over the country and do work because we have we find guys in these areas. So that's the main source of our income right now. How we get our business.
So you get a new client and they have a large job for you. I'd imagine there's a certain amount of overhead or like equipment that you have to purchase up front to get a job. How do you go about funding that? Do you just have like a giant pile of cash that you use, or do you get loans?
I wish I had a giant pile of cash I use. I mean, I think it's everyone wishes that, right? I walk out back and just shake this tree, and these dollar bills just start coming out. I won't give that trade secret away though. But so I mean, we do try to hold a certain amount of cash, in the bank, because we do. It's simple calculation. It takes money to make money, so you have to have money in order to make money. That was one of the mistakes I made, way back in the day. I tried to do all this stuff with $100 in the bank. I mean, it's just not possible. So we use our capital purchase account, and we also use line of credits and credit cards, things like that. But I mean, there's not a lot of overhead necessary. Sometimes it can be. It all depends on the project. Sometimes the IT companies will buy the materials. Sometimes our vendors will, our clients will buy the materials. It just depends on the situation. But we try to be flexible in that we will, foot the cost. Sometimes we ask for like a 35 to 50% deposit, depending on the situation. Some clients are a little bit leery about giving you money up front. And in those cases, then we will, pull some stuff on our line of credit to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what we've learned to do too, is do a 50% deposit. But that's interesting. Some of them, your clients won't give a deposit down, or they're reluctant to.
Sometimes it's when you get to a certain stage in business, the kind of clients that you deal with change. So, we deal with Amazon for example. Amazon's the biggest company in the world. Now, we're not big enough to go directly to Amazon, but we go through another company that's pretty large themselves. If you're gonna play with the big boys in the industry, you have to be able to walk the talk. So we don't like to ask for money. I'll pull some credit cards together. I'll pull some from our line of credit. We have other funding sources that we use as well, some private equity and things like that. It makes you look more professional if you could do it without asking for money. So that's kind of where where I am with the business right now. Is we're changing into that scenario where the customers that we're getting are a little bit bigger, and they would expect you to be able to front this kind of stuff, because if you can't, they're like, I don't know if I want to deal with you.
So how many people are in the company right now? Well, I guess it's on like a corporate level, since it sounds like most of you guys are subcontractors for a lot of the cable work.
Yeah, we have a good team of subcontractors. There right now we have 3 full-time, including myself, and we have 2 part-time guys. We're going to start interviewing probably for another full-time guy here soon.
So how do you, so what is like your role? I know you're the owner. What title do you give yourself, and what kind of responsibilities do you personally manage in the business?
Depends on the day of the week. It depends on how busy we are. I try to stay out of the field. I'm probably 60-40. I'm probably 40% in the field, 60% in the office doing the operational stuff and kind of managing the projects and things like that. But if we get really busy, I'm gonna be in the field. I'm gonna be pulling cable just with the rest of the guys because we got to do it. We're just busy, and I can't overwork them too much.
So if you have a job like a warehouse for Amazon and you're running all the cables through it, how many contractors and employees does it take to do a job like that?
Every Amazon's different. Some when we did out in Pittsburgh was needed just maybe 4 or 5 guys. When we did out in Philadelphia recently, we needed actually I think it was Harrisburg. We needed like 8. It just depends on how big the warehouses are. We're pulling, we're pulling fiber from one end of the warehouse, 2,500 feet to the other side of the warehouse. So it's
like a
it's heavy.
10-minute
It's heavy.
walk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 24 strand fiber. It's heavy fiber. You have to put pulleys and make big service loops, every couple 100 feet, or you'll never be able to pull it. So we have to have a guy, set up here, and then 400 feet down here, another guy set up, and then a couple 100 feet down there, another guy set up, and then we move the whole operation down. So it's a lot,
Are those
especially
job-
with those Amazons because they're so busy. You're working around all the
I was
equipment.
going to ask on those jobs like Amazon where it's like a bigger, huge type of just web you guys are putting in essentially. Is that usually like, okay, you guys have 1 week to get it done? Or like, how does the structure work? Like, do you want to get it done as fast as possible? Or are you there on like a day rate?
We usually give them a flat quote for it. So
So
the
as
faster
fast
you get
as
it done,
possible,
yeah. They take anywhere from like a week to a month usually.
And do you guys have anything in place to try to keep that moving since you are on a flat rate? Like,
Yeah, that's either myself or whoever I put in charge.
the management?
Yeah, we typically have either myself or a job foreman that'll be in charge that will, make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing to get the job done.
How much training is required for somebody who's going to be pulling this type of cable? Because I know we've had conversations about how this cable is different from, say, like electrical cable and things like that.
You could probably learn the basics in a couple of weeks. It's one of those practice makes perfect things. Like the more you do it, the more it just becomes second nature. It just becomes repetitive. The work is pretty much the same. You're going to pop a ceiling tile, pull a cable, cut a hole in the wall, fish it down, and terminate it, and call it a day. So it's generally the same as that you do every single day. So it's just repetition. Now there's certifications and things like that you can get that require some schooling and things like that, study materials, more terminology than anything else. We don't deal with that, that side of it too much. We follow all the industry standards that you're supposed to, but we haven't had a need to send our guys out to school or class or anything like that. And no one's has required it at all.
What's the process you go about for training new guys?
We take them out. Usually, if I have a new candidate that I'm looking at, we'll kind of take them out, for the day. I'll throw him some cash or whatever for the day, and see how he does. Just basic, yeah. Hey, go grab that, and it's kind of like see if he can follow instructions. If he can follow instructions, then he's teachable. So if he can't follow instructions, McDonald's is hiring. You can go there. So that's the most important thing is if you can follow instructions and you're competent and you can be on time and pick up a tool, then you're trainable and we can make it work. So after that first process, we just make sure that he's competent and can follow instructions. Then we'll start actually teaching him. We'll have one of our guys be with him. So, hey, we're going to pull this cable here. You're going to pop these ceiling tiles. Don't lay the cable on the tile. Pull it this way. Don't kink it. When you get to the wall, we'll show you how to cut the hole in the wall, how to fish it down, proper use of the tools. So, and if they like it, they'll come out, for the week, and after I'd say maybe a week or 2 weeks, I'll have a pretty competent understanding of how to be able to do it. They won't be able to do it on their own yet, but as long as they have someone supervised, they can probably run off and do some things on their own.
Yeah, I imagine too. There's like must be truckloads of cable at some point for some of these big jobs. How do you guys deal with after you've purchased all this stuff? Do you ship it straight to the job site, or do you have like a storage location? How do you guys manage?
We have a project trailer that we store a lot of the cable in, and yeah, we order 10 to 20,000 feet of cable at a time. It's just something that we always stock. So when we get low, I'll call up our vendor. We'll order another 8,000 feet, another 10,000 feet. We try to keep a couple thousand feet just for our day-to-day service calls. And then if we get a certain project that comes in, like, hey, we're going to do a big warehouse, we need 100,000 feet of cable, then I'll order 100,000 feet just for that project. And we'll either drop ship that or the guys will bring it out.
So yeah, you were saying you guys do you use a lead service as well as a lot of relationships and partnerships with other IT people. Do you guys do any other marketing stuff? I know it's such a niche B2B service you guys have. It's not like Facebook would be very effective, but
we don't really do much marketing, other than the pick up the phone, call some of your customers you haven't talked to in a while. I just called a guy I haven't talked to in 10 years, the other day. He was one of my old customers from my old business, and just going through my phone contacts, and I was like, oh, haven't talked to him in a while. Just decided to give him a call. I mean, that's kind of the extent of our marketing, other than the website you guys did for us. We don't really do too much marketing. A lot of it just repeat business. So if we get one new IT company, I mean, that could be lucrative for the next year. They're busy, so they keep feed us work. I always I want to be the guy that's being fed. I want to get the work coming in. So,
Did you ever get into Google Ads or anything like that?
in my old company, I did like Google AdWords campaign, and I did like mailers and Yellow Book, and it's doesn't work for my industry. At least not for the niche of that IT term that I fall into.
mm-hmm. So how do you guys organize your sales structure? Are you doing most of the sales?
I do most of the sales right now. We're transitioning to really build the IT side or the managed service side, and that's going to require a little bit more of a salesy approach. So we have another lead service that we're getting ready to be onboarded with here probably in the next couple of months. I'm just trying to narrow down the right sales guy for it. And once those leads start coming in, he's just going to, pound the phones and just line up new MSP contracts.
So what's your process for sales? Like, let's say a lead comes in, either a phone call or an email. Where do you take it from there all the way to the close?
Well, the good thing about the lead service that we have is they are qualified. So they are people that are actually looking for our services. So it's a pretty easy icebreaker. You don't have to try to get them hooked onto it. They already know what you're offering. They already know what they want for the most part. So we'll just call it, make the phone call and try to set up a meeting. So I wouldn't expect my sales guy to have a super tech, background. His goal is just to get him in front of a meeting with either myself or one of my other engineers, and then we'll kind of take it from there. So we want to assess, design, implement, and then train. So we kind of assess what they have. We look at their pain points, the issues they're having. We kind of make a design that's going to work for them. Then we implement that design, and then we train them on it.
So it's kind of like the first person that they're contacted from in your company is really more of an appointment setter, and then you come in as the expert to close the deal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah.
So how many experts do you have? How many closers do you have?
I would say it's myself and Brandon, our other main engineer.
And then how many appointment setters on the sales team?
None yet.
Okay.
We're still looking for a guy to fill that role. So
Okay, gotcha.
that's probably a couple months out yet.
Okay. So that's one of the areas you plan to develop. Are there any other areas you're planning on developing new positions for the company?
Yeah, we're looking at doing some sales, or not sales, but like equipment sales, like used equipment. We get a lot of used equipment from companies that are downsizing, just want to get rid of stuff.
Do they just give it to you?
Oh yeah, they very often give it to us. They don't want to deal with it, so it's like they'd rather have someone else take it for free than have to find someone to recycle it or charge them to get rid of it. And we'll look at it. If it's worth it, we'll take it and we'll fix it up and sell it. But if it's not, then we'll recycle it and make a couple bucks from that.
So, do you guys do any government contracting work?
We've dabbled in it a little bit. We did a job for the Department of State in Philadelphia last year. We do a roundabout way. We contract through the state of Delaware. We do a lot of work for the housing department. I guess the Department of Housing for Delaware. We do a lot of their affordable homes. We do Wi-Fi for them. It's not a contract directly with them. We go through another developer that has that contract with them. I would say that's probably the extent of our government work.
Do you guys, I know like in Philly, it's very union based. Do you guys have do you work as union or non-union? Do you ever get into any issues where someone wants you to do a job, but it's a full union gig?
We do occasionally run into those situations. I try to steer clear of them. We're not affiliated with the union at all, and I try to stay out of that.
Is there a cabling union?
There's not a low voltage cabling union, but that would fall under the electricians union. So whatever that one is, and we've had some scraps with them before, and it's just not don't really want to tango with them. So we try to steer clear of that as best we can.
So yeah, so we have cabling and then the management services, stuff like that. Is there any other services you guys have?
Yeah, I mean just IT and cabling
Anything
right now.
Anything you guys are looking to expand into?
Other than the used equipment sales, nothing yet.
I wanted to ask, when you're working with the government, what has that process been like for you? Because I know we've done a couple of things with the government. Some people are crazy about the idea because there's a lot of money. Other people try to avoid it because there's so many regulations and so many hoops you got to jump through. What's been your experience?
It Again, it depends on the job. There's so many guidelines and stipulations and things like that when you're going through the government, and you have to be qualified in so many different areas. So if you're a certified small business, the government has a certain amount of money set aside for certified small businesses, which means you're going to have a much better chance of landing those jobs because they'll reach right out to your company and say, hey, here's a job, here's a budget, can you do it?
What do you have to do to become certified as a small business?
A lot of paperwork. We haven't done it yet. It's something that we're considering. I'm just not 100% sold if I want to go that route or not, because the government doesn't give deposits. You know what I mean? So it's something that if you do get into that route, you need to be pretty financially stable.
And they probably take a long time to pay too.
I mean, yes and no, and that depends on the job too. Like if it's under a certain amount of money, they might just give you a credit card, pay the whole thing. Or the Department of State, they did the whole thing on a credit card before we even did the job. They were like, it was only like $3,500. He's like, yeah, we're good for it. Can you take a credit card? Sure. All right. And we did the job 4 months later because they kept changing the schedule. They kept doing this different, doing that different. So yeah, and that was a pretty easy one. But I'm sure I'll get some of them that are be like, yeah, we need you to order, $50,000 worth of stuff, and we'll pay in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, when do you want to jump on that boat?
Yeah, we've seen too with a lot of the government stuff. It's like they need to get a proposal from 3 different people, and then they go with the cheapest one. Like they're like have to, depending on who it is you're working with. So we found it to be less than appealing to dive into that whole world of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, also
Yep.
sometimes there's like local governments which aren't so bad to work with. So it's like, yeah, I guess it totally depends on the level that you're trying to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like with business too. It's like the bigger the business, the slower they move and get things paid. Like certain people we worked, it took like 8 months to get paid on something.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, they won't even let you start working on it till you get paid. So it's like,
Right.
okay, we'll start on this next year.
Right.
Handshake and
Yep.
wait.
Yep.
Where,
Yep.
yeah, a small business, they can give you a check right there, like at your first meeting if they like it.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like you pick and choose what speed you want to move as a business too.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's nice to have the mix because then you have your long term stuff. Okay, we know in a year that's gonna become a thing, or this next 6 months, these smaller fast things will.
I say I'd much rather have, or I'd say a combination of both. I don't want all $100,000 projects. I'd rather have like $10,000 projects, maybe one $100,000 project, because the bigger projects can go crazy really quick. Your labor hours can just skyrocket, and there's so many other things that can go wrong. So it can be very lucrative, or it can bankrupt you.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost dangerous having that set rate per job. Like, do you guys ever consider or to have jobs where we got to do this on hourly or day rate?
It's a mixture. So a lot of our rollout companies, the ones that have the national accounts, they're 90% T&M. So they want you to give them hey, here's your hourly rate, go out and do the job. And sometimes they have expectations of when it should get done, but other times they're pretty flexible because they know it's the nature of the business. And occasionally they'll ask for a quote if it's going to be like a bigger project. And then some of our other customers, more of our direct clients are usually more quote based. So we'll give an actual quote because they like to see that flat number, and for the most part, we are pretty solid with our quoting. Obviously things are a little bit sideways sometimes. And depending on the job, you can put some stipulations in there and say, hey, we're gonna estimate the amount of hours, and here's your price for this, and if this happens, it's gonna be this price. It's because you don't know. Like, I can get in the building and it would be all solid ceilings, and I have no idea what's above the ceiling, so I can't just cut into them willy nilly. We got to make an inspection hole, take a camera, look around, see what's going on, and then that can change our whole game plan.
Do you guys do like the drywall repair around stuff like that, or is that?
I mean, I don't do it. You don't want me doing drywall repair. It's gonna look pretty bad. But we have a guy that we can bring in to do that.
And I guess that's like a project by project basis.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah.
totally different.
And most of the if we do have to cut into drywall, we'll do a site survey and let them know ahead of time and say, we'll cut the drywall, but you got to fix it. So as long as you're okay with that, we'll make the holes, but you got to patch them later. And a lot of their maintenance guys will be able to do that with no problem.
So I wanted to say, if you were going to rebuild this business knowing everything you know now and you had to restart from scratch, would you do anything different?
Yes, I would definitely do things different. Get better contracts, be a little bit wiser with the people you hire to structure your company. We had a gentleman that he was a really nice guy, did a great job on our logo and things like that, but wasn't the best at structuring a legal business, even though he said he could, but structured us the wrong way. And it caused us to hit some bumps in the road with with some contracts that kind of went south when we first started. But that would be the biggest thing I would change is just be a little bit more cautious with that, getting better contracts in place. It's not the out west where you can just get a handshake and a stern look and do your business on that anymore. You really got to get everything I's dotted, T's crossed, and that would be one of my biggest things.
And when you say
now.
contracts, you mean the written actual legal document
right,
contract, not
your fee
a job
agreement
contract.
or whatever it states. This is what we're doing. This is what you're paying us, and this is how long we're gonna float the money for, how or the progress payment you're gonna give. Just details everything.
Did you? I'm just wondering, why did you say that? Did you run into some areas where you lost some money, or?
Well, yeah, our very first job, we got involved with a school district project that wound up being like a prevailing wage rate, and the company that hired us fraudulently they did not disclose that, which is against the law. It's like it's a fraud.
What is
So,
a prevailing wage rate?
that has to do with the union. So if you're on a federally funded project that meets the criteria, you have to pay your employees a certain rate, which is going to be the same as union rates. So prevailing wage is whatever you look up the union rates, and that's what you got to pay your staff. So I wasn't paying any of them that rate because I didn't know. It's actually our first large project, and they came back and bid us. And we got sued, and we sued them, and it was just cost a lot of money. So, but we came out of it. They understood that the main culprit was the one that broke the law, and they did a lot of real shady things to cover that up. And it wasn't their first school district they did it on. They did it on 3 other ones where they broke that law. They didn't disclose that information. So they got nailed even harder than we did, but we still got a bloody nose from it.
And was this like a third party in between the school district and you guys who was
Yes.
arranging the job?
Yeah. It was a company that hired us to. They had the contract with the school district, so they hired us to pull the cable. And they did not disclose that prevailing wage law.
So why would they do that? Were they like pocketing extra money somehow?
Oh, absolutely. It's I mean and that's the other thing with the government too, man. It's so corrupt. There's especially local school districts, things like that. Everyone knows everybody. So I guarantee you there was someone in the school district that knew someone from that company, and they were getting something arranged. Could almost bet money on it.
And then you're stuck with, so like they must have had a larger sum. They see you as a new company who, you put in a lower bid and weren't aware that if you weren't paying your guys a certain rate, then you would be sued.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that's kind of nefarious.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was absolutely clearly broke the law.
And how would you have educated yourself about those laws?
Now that I know, there's request to know laws, so you can demand the school district give you the contract. So I can actually look at the school district contract and I say, oh, this is prevailing wage. Oh, I know exactly where this money's coming from now. So they're getting it from this, the federal E-rate program, which is guaranteed federal funds. It's prevailing wage. So we educated ourselves on prevailing wage really quickly, and we've successfully done some other prevailing wage projects. Now that we know,
Just bidding accordingly.
right? Exactly. I just bid it accordingly. I pay the guys the rate that they need by law. We have no issues.
And you have to pay that to I'm a little confused on how that setup works. So if you're on one of those prevailing wage things, are the guys you have to bring in union,
No.
but you have to pay them union
Exactly.
scale?
Yep. The prevailing wage exists because of the union.
Okay.
So it's basically another way. It's a way you pay non-union guys union rates. Is what that is. So
And who brings the charges against you when if you fail to do that?
I mean, if the employees find out, they can. In my situation, they were. I mean, the guys I had contracts working for me then, they were all in on it. So they all knew it was.
Workers?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was.
Is that where the
They were.
lawsuit came from?
Well, I think they were trying to sneak in this organization somehow, the company that was violating this law in 3 other school districts, and I was short a guy, so they were able to get in through my company.
And then he
So exactly,
raised
and then
the
they
flag and everything.
right they raised the flag. I was the honest guy because when I found out about it, I went and told my guys. I'm not gonna not disclose that. I'm not gonna be dishonest about it. I'm just like, hey man, I just found out this is what the situation is, and you guys are entitled to this money, so
congratulations, guys.
right now we got to figure it out. So yeah, but they all filed lawsuits. It's just lawsuits going back and forth, man. It's just nuts.
How long was that whole process?
I'd say 6 months probably of just I mean the company still owes me money. I won the lawsuit. I got default judgment against them. They owe me $76,000. I got 23. That was only on a deposit, so they still haven't paid me the rest of the money. So, but they went out of business.
Yeah, what you gonna do?
Right. Yeah. They went out of business, and the one owner, I believe, went to jail for tax fraud or something like that.
Oh wow, yeah.
So
gonna be tough to get that
yeah.
back then.
Yep.
Yeah, we hear about that a lot. The same people who will be the first ones to defraud you.
Yeah.
Usually they're some of the first people going out of business.
Oh yeah. Yep.
In the long run.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Doesn't pay. Just be honest.
Yeah, so we covered a little bit, but I wanted to ask if someone wants to start their own IT services business, what advice would you give them on strategizing what area they want to go into within IT and then how to kind of get set up properly? What kind of research do you want to do? Did you do any like competitor analysis when you started out or anything like that?
I didn't. We just kind of learned as we went. We weren't really IT based. The whole structure of the company kind of switched so rapidly because I got into this whole new world of cabling, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is quick. It's easy to do. I've been doing cabling for forever, so I knew how to do it. That's why I was able to be a project manager for a company out in Philly. I already had the experience in doing it, but I did not know how lucrative and profitable it was to actually do that for a living. I didn't even know the industry was so big. It's like a $25 billion industry, the low volt cabling. So we didn't really do a lot of research on the IT side of it, which is why we're kind of gradually getting into that side of it. So we're kind of starting to do our research now. And IT changes so rapidly. I mean, it's changing every day. So it's hard to say, learn this because that could change. So you have to do like continuing education. Always be on podcasts and YouTube, Googling things, so you keep yourself up with how technology changes. Because your reputation's on the line. You're telling a company how to pretty much operate their business from a technological standpoint. So if you say something wrong, give them bad advice, it could really screw them up. So you have to be sharp and be on top of your knowledge. So I would say make sure you have a good sound knowledge and hire good people that know what they're doing as well. That would be my best advice.
Okay, good. Any other announcements or plans for the future you guys have going on?
Not right now. I'm sure there'll be more announcements coming. I can keep you guys up to date
Okay, yeah.
on it.
And if anybody wants to speak with you or get in touch, what's the best way?
Just shoot me an email. Yep. Michael@cubion.com.
Michael@cubion.com. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that wraps up things here on the podcast, Mike.
Awesome.
So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you guys. All right.
Our pleasure.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.